We have a request here, Stugots, that someone has written in. They want you to be sort of a performing monkey that jumps off of the street performer's shoulder and then goes into the streets and grabs money. All-time choke job from Rory, someone writes in. If Stugots doesn't open the National Hour with a scorching hot Rory choke job take, I might stop watching the show. That is peak DLS, and I need a taste of it again ASAP.
Okay, well, he choked, and I have plenty of takes on Rory. He's so close to being Tiger.
That's your take after a choke job? He's so close to being Tiger?
I'm not going to burn through the choke takes here before we go on air. I know we're doing this live for the YouTube audience, but I'm not going to burn all the takes I have on Rory. I was actually hoping that he didn't win, so I didn't have to say his name so much, but now I have to say his name even more.
Well, you can just call him Rory. Go ahead and try and say his last name.
McIlroy?
There you go.
For real?
Yeah, that is how you say it. It's
Mackle, huh?
Mackle.
Not McIlroy?
Right, Mackle. Not
Mackle.
the dyslexia that you have about reading.
I actually think he was going for a bit, trying to say it wrong, and
I stumbled into
he
getting
stumbled
it right.
upon the right
It's
pronunciation.
always possible. You never know.
Well, it's better than Lucy saying Arnold Palmer.
Curry and almond caramel now.
What do you think of this from Golf Digest? Because I think this was pretty good writing here on some details. Then Rory exits on how McIlroy left yesterday after losing. Then Rory exits, and he looks worse than before. He's wearing his failure to such an extent that I have to look away. Suddenly, he's being followed by a stream of people that includes the Netflix crew and the smiling face of Sergio Garcia.
Oh, God.
He is ahead of us all, and he exits the corridor into the players' parking lot. One bag goes in the trunk of a black Lexus, plate number ET4795, courtesy of Harry Diamond. They are moving fast. He says his quick goodbyes, gets behind the wheels, backs up. His next maneuver isn't quite a peel out, but you can hear the tires fight for traction, and it's a little fast for the crowded lot. That's reporting right on it right there. That is how angry was McIlroy's car as he left after choking.
I love a smiling Sergio Garcia, a smiling face of Live Golf, just waiting for Rory to remind him, you lost to a guy who plays for Live.
The smiling face of Sergio Garcia after you've choked again so that Stugots can say you're so close to being Tiger. Chris Cody, do you and your family have an explanation for what's happening on the internet where a lot of people are writing some form of if the Oilers come back and win the cup, Cody will be blamed for jinxing the entire team and it won't be Greg. You don't hope your team loses ever. You never know.
You think it's just me and my dad? My mom is swooping in and going to her first game in like 2 years for Game 5.
Nice.
So now, if we lose Game 5, you can blame Erlene Cody, Greg Cody, and me for jinxing Roy. I told my dad this yesterday. The Codys need this Game 5 more than anybody.
I've been arguing with Mike all weekend about escalating all of the pressure on the Codys in Edmonton by throwing some money at your father right now, going up on a billboard in Edmonton saying he was right about McDavid, even though he couldn't be more wrong about McDavid.
I'm terrified now, so I'm not doing anything else. I've done enough.
And you say he couldn't be more wrong about McDavid? Give it time. He can possibly be way more wrong about Connor McDavid.
But right now, today, he's still right. I don't care. They're up 3-1. McDavid scored a meaningless goal. I don't want to hear about it.
Stop talking about goal scoring. He's got the most assists in NHL postseason history this season.
That's great. I mean, they're down 3-1.
He's a leading point scorer in this series.
Yeah, but all Greg said is he needs a cup to validate the greatness, and he's down 3-1.
That's not all he said.
Mick overrated.
Exactly right.
God, you can't back Greg Cody on a truly ridiculous take. When you say that's great to Mike saying more assists than ever.
How about scoring more goals?
He's passing Gretzky. That's great.
Right.
He's passing the great one.
Yeah, Gretzky has 5 rings. Rings plus minus. Put him in a box. Wayne, 5. McDavid, none.
Such a bad take. Billy's got a question. Billy's got a new game.
This game now, but this is not for the YouTube audience.
No,
no offense to the YouTube audience, but you got to stick around for this one.
You just offended the YouTube audience.
Stop that.
tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pond. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. You can't go on, man, forget my peace. You take the west, I'll take on the east. I'ma put them in the cage, never let out the. Yeah, I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Not so tough, but mans keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize. Right, guys, better tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pond. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
Where and when is it funnier for someone to go up 3-0 and then lose the series? Boston or this show? Boston or this show? If I put that in front of the audience and I ask which is funnier, go up 3-0, get that close to the cup, get that close to the championship, and then cough up the series.
Both. I'm going with both.
Okay, but I'm asking you to pick one.
I'm
Both,
not picking one.
Well, both doesn't
It would
really
be
work.
really funny if this happened.
Yeah.
I think probably the probability is less than like 0%.
I'm not answering your question.
Well, it has to be better
It's
than
an either-or situation, though. I
No,
mean,
it's
never
so
happened.
funny no matter what happens. It's so funny. I'm telling you.
It's never happened, but that doesn't make the future probability of it 0%. At some
I meant
point,
one, but
it's
Less than
early.
0.
Yeah.
Okay, it is early. That's it. Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Is it too early to know the difference between 0 and 1? Billy, what is the game that you want to play?
Oh, I want to play a game that I came up with, Dan, and I was thinking about this for a while. I know you're going to think, how did you come up with this game, Billy? It's because I'm a genius. This is the game. It's called What's Your Price?
I like that.
So, like, a lot of games, they'll give you a thing, and you have to guess what that thing costs, right? That's the opposite of What's Your Price. Here, you have the thing. So there's not a determined price, but everyone has a price. Yeah. So in this week's subject of What's Your Price, Chris Cody has tickets to Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final, where he is hoping to see his beloved Florida Panthers win their first Stanley Cup. Now, he has 2 tickets, Dan. He could use that second ticket for his wife. He could use it for his young daughter. It could be one of those core memories. I don't know if you've seen the movie about the feelings. In the feelings movie, they have the core memories that stick with you the entire
Inside
time.
Out?
Inside
That's
Out,
the
yeah.
one.
Yeah. Saw that on Friday, the sequel.
How was the sequel?
I mean, beautiful. I mean, to see the girl grow
Yeah.
and you introduce puberty into the mix, obviously a whole new slew of emotions.
Okay.
I heard it was just rinse repeat on the first one.
Yeah, but new emotions.
What are
Anyways,
the new
There's
emotions?
envy, anxiety,
Puberty,
embarrassment.
yeah.
Embarrassment kind of steals the show.
All right, spoiler alert. Jeez Louise. Anyways, the point is, what's your price? So he could be creating a core memory for his daughter. He could be creating a core memory for himself, his wife. He has the ticket everybody wants. And by the way, tickets are still available should you want to get them. But, you know, you go to secondary market at this point. A place like a Game Time, maybe, perhaps, is where
Thank
you
you
go.
for the Vine, because I actually did that over the weekend. Dan, that 8-1 loss to the Edmonton Oilers cost me around $4,000 because I wanted lower bowl tickets to watch the Florida Panthers. And thankfully, I woke up early. I checked the all-in pricing on the Game Time app, and I decided, you know, I've lived 30 years on this planet. Well, I've lived more than that, but the Panthers have been on this earth for 30
See,
years.
it's
Well
early.
said, yeah.
It's
And I
early.
haven't really had the opportunity ever to see Lord Stanley lifted by my home team in its home barn. So I said, YOLO, and I put in promo code DAN, $20 off the first purchase. I created an account for my wife. That's a nice little way to do it. Create an account, use promo code Dan, get $20 off. Also, if for whatever reason you're scouring the secondary market and you find a better price out there, Game Time will match it up to 110%. Great customer service. Game Time, flash deals, lowest price, guaranteed.
I want to put the question in front of Chris Cody, but before I do, Stugotz, you did see that in Boston, right? That's the most expensive ticket in the history of Boston sports. The cheapest way to get into Game 5 in Boston is a ticket for $1,715.
Man.
That is the cheapest ticket in Boston. Kyrie Irving has called it a cult, the Boston Celtics experience, and it's an expensive one. When it comes to this game in town, with the Panthers. I had asked Zaslow, trying to see if we can put together something that resembles a watch party tomorrow for possibly winning the championship or laughing at our show because now everyone gets scared. And I asked Zaslow if he was going to the game, and his response was, I wish. This is a lifelong Panther fan trying to get into the game who cares deeply about it, but he can't get into the game because it's going to be a very popular ticket and a very expensive ticket, even though we've been making fun of the fact that none of those fans live south in Miami. They all live around the arena, but it's a very popular ticket, and I do want to talk about some of what it is that just happened because, Stugots, Roy Bellamy went to Edmonton to watch Edmonton score 8 goals. There are photographs of a sad Roy Bellamy thinking he was going to watch the Panthers win the championship, and instead he's just stuck in Edmonton, and he watched them score 8 goals.
I know this trip for Roy wasn't cheap, and it would be a little bit funny if the Panthers lost Game 5 and he had to fly back to Edmonton for Game 6.
I'm rooting for it.
He's still
I
not back
said it.
from Edmonton.
He's
He
still
should
traveling.
just stay there at this point. Like, I don't think there's enough time for him to come back and go back.
He's not here today because he's traveling.
I think he's on the 4th of 4 connecting flights.
Crazy.
It's 2,500 miles, and it was an enormous disaster. You've got Bobrovsky giving up 5 goals on 16 shots. He gets pulled from the game. And I was looking this up. You guys help me with this. Which one do you think is more likely this season? Edmonton scoring 8 goals in a game, or Edmonton being held to 4 goals in 3 games the way they were the first 3 games of the Stanley Cup Final? Because I'll tell you the answer to that. What's more likely is Edmonton scoring 8 times in a game. You don't hold them down for 3 games. That's not something that is possible, but maybe the best defense in the Stanley Cup in the playoffs. Maybe the best defensive team can indeed do that one more time in 3 games, but it's not likely that you're going to do it for 3 games.
I have a stat that I stole from television, Dan, if you'd like it on this exact subject. The last time the Oilers lost 3 straight games, they went on to win 16 straight after that. That's 4 Stanley Cups they're poised to win now.
Yeah, they've lost 3 games 3 times, and they've always rattled off big, long win streaks. The 16-gamer, the 8-gamer, a 5-gamer. They've won 8 games in a row twice this season.
I know it was a bad loss, but you guys aren't seriously nervous, right? Like, Mike, there's no way.
I'm scared of that offense, period. I'm scared.
Dan's been scared of overwhelming offense all postseason long. So
I
it tracks.
understand that, but they're up 3 games to 1, and 2 of the next 3 are at home if they indeed need them.
No, I'm not nervous yet. I was mad at that loss because it cost me a lot of money because I knew, well, I'm not going to miss an opportunity to be at Game 5. But if there's ever a scenario to make you overthink a 3-1 lead with the opportunity to close out a series at home, it's losing in that fashion, 8-1, with 3 days to chew on it.
It's the way that the Celtics also lost. They get blown out. But the part that I wanted to discuss with you guys as it relates to Mike and I arguing all weekend is I want to put up a billboard in Edmonton of Greg Cody being right about Connor McDavid being overrated, even though I think it's an inordinately dumb take and quintessentially both Cody and sports talk that you would just say, guy who's great, overrated, and then there we are. There's nothing else there. It's the flimsiest thing, but I want to put up a
storyline.
I want to put up a billboard. Yes, he's made it a storyline.
You can both be great and overrated at the same time.
You can be, but this particular person is not that.
He hasn't won a cup yet.
This is so Dan because I had mentioned this McDavid discourse prior to the show, and he's like, what McDavid discourse? I'm like, you've got a lot of nerve, Dan Le Batard, absolving yourself
no
from your role in
discourse.
this.
It's just
As he
Greg
pours
Cody.
gasoline. It's just Greg Cody?
Yes.
Is it just Greg Cody that is fighting to put up Greg Cody was right billboards all over the province of Alberta? Is that Greg Cody?
And by the way, we've done a little research on this. We're a little worried in the turnaround time, not the pricing of a billboard, but how quick we can get one up in Edmonton. So to pivot, we have found that you can do a skywriting
Right.
for
No.
$2,000 over the stadium.
That's expensive.
You don't want that.
We could no. I'm sorry.
Edmonton does not have digital billboards.
I misread that. $14K for skywriting, $2K to fly a banner. If we want to fly a banner,
$20K to send Roy just back to a game.
$2,000 fly a banner over the
Yes.
stadium that says Greg Cody was right.
I thought skywriting at 2K was too much. You're telling me now it's 14K?
Yeah, $14K for
That's
skywriting.
ridiculous.
Well, 'cause you're
It
creating
disappears.
clouds.
Yeah,
Stop
it
talking about
disappears.
billboards. Can we stop giving Greg Cody oxygen except the actual oxygen he truly needs and grasps for every time he's in with us on Tuesdays?
We also, if we're going to do this, not that I'm saying we should or shouldn't, but if we're a little more clever than just Greg Cody is right, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it should say something along the lines of make overrated and you know it.
Do we have the clip? Do we have that clip of who that is from earlier this season? Because this is who you're touting. This is the man, the hockey expert, the voice of South Florida, a columnist for generations, the guy that started a big controversy in Canada. I heard from Canadians this isn't just some made-up thing. They got really pissed off with the week that they had to chew on this. This is who they're mad at.
Connor McDavid.
That is Greg Cody reacting to a photo of not Connor McDavid, Jack Hughes.
Right. Well, if he won a cup, I guarantee you Greg would have known who he was.
Zagak.
Right.
Why are you giving me quotes on skywriting when I asked for quotes on billboards?
Because I just told you, like, what do you want the billboard up in 3 weeks? Like, we
No.
need this
Quicker
to be
options.
quick. Like,
No,
I think-
the digital
I'm just telling you, we've done a little research on this, and we're worried. Like, I don't think they have a lot of video ones.
I was against this from the moment Dan mentioned it because what beef is there with Alberta? Yeah. This is not Tampa. This is not Boston where there's already a sports rivalry and they played. This is not New York where they played and you had feisty exchanges with fans. This has been relatively classy. Yeah. But then I was made aware of a billboard that was put up.
Well, hold on a second before you keep going down this path, because I don't know who made you aware of it. When you sent me the photo, I assumed that you were driving on I-95 and you had seen it. But Mike's turn on this weekend, he spent the entire weekend telling me how wrong it was to do this before the series ends and how we're going to jinx McDavid, even though he told me the same thing when I said, let's put up in the merch store the McOverrated shirts. And then what the Panthers did is win the next 3 games because he doesn't want this person agitated. He is rightly scared of this person. And we don't have beef with Edmonton of any sort. But then Mike comes around when he gets sent this billboard that's up in South Florida, Edmonton, home of 5 cups and 0 rats. Explore Edmonton, Canada's hockey city. That is what changed your mind?
Yeah, they drew first blood. Wow. I was trying to be classy. City of Edmonton, Alberta. I have put out so many fires here. No. The discourse would have been out of control had I not been here trying to play whack-a-mole with these jinxes over here. But then you slipped through the cracks and you drew first blood when it came to billboards.
I feel like this isn't a beef with Edmonton, though, right? Like, you should put this outside of Mike Johnson's house.
Yeah. Yes. No doubt.
Like, find out wherever he lives and the nearest billboard to him so he has to drive by it every day.
What do we think Roy did on Father's Day in Edmonton yesterday?
Oh boy.
It was wild because he is still traveling here. The game ended on Friday, so he decided willingly, like, for Father's Day, I just want to spend – the game ended on Saturday. He wanted to spend his entire Sunday in Edmonton, Alberta, because he was like, I don't know if I'll ever be here again, which is actually like a pretty legitimate thought to cross your mind.
I've heard it's Canada's hockey city.
Does
No
Edmonton indeed have 0 rats? That can't be true. That can't.
At a certain point, is it too cold for rats to thrive?
No.
Well, I think it's like termites. They
They
don't
just get fatter.
They don't exist north.
I feel like you guys are trying to derail from what's your price.
Chris,
yeah.
what's your price?
My price is $2,500 for my wife's ticket.
Well, no one's going to buy one
Just
ticket.
your wife's, because you're going no matter what.
What do you actually hold on a second? What do you think, like, if Chris Cody were to say, I will sell my ticket and you can go to the game with me, what do you think that would fetch, like, amongst the listeners?
So he's selling one ticket now. You get to go with Chris Cody.
Yeah, but if you put your ticket on sale by itself, I don't know that it would sell. Now, if you put your ticket out there publicly, like, come to the game with me, What do you think you could get for that?
I don't know. This game, probably a lot, probably $2,500, but I'm not going to do that to my wife. $3,000 I will, though.
But would you do it for $2,750?
You do it for $2,500. I mean, let's.
My
be honest.
wife would more want to do it for that than I
Right.
would.
I think your wife would do it for $1,800.
Yeah, I'm not. I could ask her. I could say, "What's your price tonight?"
Yeah, ask her.
But she gets to spend the money. It's her ticket.
Whoa. That
Why
goes
would
right-
you get the money?
Because
And
I put
you
a
get
lot
to-
of money into these tickets. It's just going right back into the pool.
Alberta has no rats.
80-20 your way, Chris, in the negotiations with your wife? Because
That works.
I think we should now do this. I think we should now test your theory on how much money, what is your actual price to betray your wife, or just to have your wife have more money because she'd prefer to have the money than go to the game with you. I believe we could sell this to a fan for an amount of money that gets both her and your attention. Is that something that you think she'd be willing in any way to do? Because, again, someone is writing in, if the Oilers come back and win the Cup, it'd be great if an Oiler fan bought her ticket.
Ooh, that would be cool.
If the Oilers come back and win the Cup, Cody will be blamed for jinxing the entire team, and it won't be Greg. You do not hope your team loses, Chris, ever, because you never know. How
If
could
you go
dare?
back to the tape, I did say I wanted to win Game 4. I just kind of said it would be funny if Roy came back with a loss. Like I said, both of those
You
things.
do a lot of laughing this weekend?
No.
Jessica, can you look up for me whether Rats have any sort of issues with Edmonton winters that would make it so that, how could Edmonton put on a billboard here the false advertising of rats? I didn't know that termites did not exist other places.
Ooh.
That's not something I knew.
No, I don't know if that's true either. I think we should maybe sue them for false advertising. And maybe that's how we get the money to pay for Roy to come back to Miami.
He's on his way back, and that
Do you
had to
know that
be-
for sure?
We don't know that for sure. It did remind me, though, his entire experience. I've told you guys this story before. I made the mistake one time of I was covering something with Jimmy Johnson in Key West, and the Miami Herald needed a credential to qualify for World Cup credentials, and so they had to cover one more soccer game. And so I was sent in an emergency to Uruguay and I'm like just in a panic, and it's winter there and I don't know it. So I'm getting off a boat in the Keys and I'm going to Uruguay, and I'm running through wintry streets in shorts, and people are yelling "Estúpido" because it's winter. And I end up going there and watching a 0-0 game. A 0-0 game I didn't want to cover that we just had to get a press credential for. So I went there to see no goals. Roy topped me. Going to Edmonton, 2,500 miles, to watch your team lose 8-1, you're immediately out of it. Your goalie gets pulled. That's a bigger disaster than me running through the streets of Uruguay being called estúpido.
Alberta, Canada has been considered rat-free since the
Thank you.
1950s due to its rat control program, which aims to prevent rats from establishing themselves in the province. However, small infestations have occurred, and in 2022, 31 rats were found in the province, up from 26 in 2020.
So explain this to me again. Explain to me
It's
how
rat-free,
means we
but
can-
there's 31 of
Yeah,
them.
we can sue them. Also,
Yeah.
termites have never been reported in Alaska.
What?
Put it on the poll. Did you know there were no termites reported in Alaska?
There's no narwhals in Miami.
That's true. You're always helpful. that
Opposite
way,
side of the
brother.
coin, pretty much. Think of all those log cabins. They would love to be in Alaska.
Maybe they don't know.
Are you guys worried at all that Tkachuk has 1 goal in 15 games?
I'm worried that he's slow for this series, and it's not really ever something that we've noticed. I think that there was one goal, actually the one McDavid goal, he was already pointing the second McDavid got ahead of steam to Carter Verhaeghe. You need to cover that.
Somebody catch it.
Yeah, and I think that there were a lot of mistakes. Tkachuk had a giveaway that led to a goal. It actually led to a giveaway that put Ekblad in a position where he would make the worst decision, and it was really frustrating because Ekblad's been so good throughout this run. We've jumped down him one time. We apologized for it on Friday, and then he had his second worst performance ever, putting everybody in bad spots. And I know he's fighting through injuries, and that's something that you have to watch because Ekblad powering through an injury is a much more deficient Aaron Ekblad. He is not the same kind of player, so hopefully you can survive it and everybody can just play a little bit tighter. But to answer your original question, yeah, both defensively, the recklessness, the fact that he's not scoring goals, the fact that he's not getting assists, it's a little cause for concern, but also you're up 3-1 in spite of him not registering like that.
Maybe I don't understand hockey, and I don't think that's what it is. But we're concerned about Ekblad only having scored 1 goal in 15 games. But McDavid...
No, Kachuk.
But
Kachuk,
McDavid's
yeah.
only scored 1 goal in what feels like 15 games, and we're still saying he's the greatest ever.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a bunch of assists, and that's also Kachuk's game. That's mainly his game. He's a lot like Connor McDavid in that. Well, and the only way he's a lot like Connor McDavid is that he's not a score-first player. He sets his teammates up. Again, Connor McDavid is not the leading scorer on his team. He's not second leading goal scorer on his team, but he's still called the greatest for the very reason that he can rack up points like assists.
But his job is to score goals. It's not to get assists.
Who,
Right?
Matthew,
He's a goal scorer.
Matthew Kachuk's job?
No, McDavid. Connor
No,
McDavid's job.
No,
it's
He's
literally
right.
the opposite of what I said. He's not a score-first player. His goal every season is to be like, let me turn Zach Hyman into a 50-goal scorer.
I don't understand what you're doing, Stugots, because you were convincing me last week how great Tatum was because he was providing shots for everybody else while going 6 for 22. Like
Right.
you did that all
Different
of
sport, Dano.
Yeah. Okay, very
Yeah.
good.
I mean, I think Connor McDavid, I think goal scorer. That's what I think. I'm
When-
not a
when
guy
you-
who makes others better.
Let me ask you a question.
Sorry.
When you think of Wayne Gretzky, what do you think of?
I think of the great one.
Yeah, but what do you think of?
Stanley Cups and rings.
Well,
He's got 5
you
of
said in the
those.
pre-show thing that he's won 5. He's won 4.
So the 5th one came with the Kings. They beat Edmonton in the Western Conference Finals to get to the Stanley Cup. If you bring the LA Kings while beating Edmonton, okay, along the way, you bring to the Kings to the Stanley Cup, a lousy organization. I don't care they get swept by Calgary with Gretzky there. That's like winning a Stanley Cup. So he has won 5, yeah.
But he doesn't lose one for Edmonton, winning one
It
without
doesn't
him.
matter. Yeah.
I feel like I'm informing you of these things.
You are.
So how much is Chris's wife's ticket going for presently?
Well, a guy tweeted me $1,900. My wife threw up $3K question mark
No,
with like
that's
an
way
with
too
a
much.
emoji,
No.
A shrug.
a shrug emoji.
This goes to charity, right? Because we're doing it on the air.
No,
No, well, is your wife's name Charity?
Mike. Do you think they make any adjustments to the 4th line?
I thought the 4th line, wow, I love that transition. Wow, it's such a geeky transition that Dan would never stand for.
Well, it's just I wonder if they're just going to stay because we're up 3-1.
You would hope that your veterans, and I think that a lot of the stats for the 4th line were a little skewed, Chris, in that they were on the ice way more because it was such a blowout. But I didn't think they had a good game. It was probably their weakest game of the series. So do you inject a Lomberg? Do you inject a Nick Cousins to maybe get a little scoring punch there?
The crowd would go nuts.
Or do
for
you just
Lomberg.
trust that 4th line has been one of the better lines all postseason long, and you have a veteran leader, even though he was out there for 15 seconds on the too many men penalty. You'd like for Oposo to be on the ice in the event that they win it, just because he's been trying for so long. But I guess, Chris, maybe Ryan Lomberg in there because Steven Lorentz hasn't been much.
A person writes in, I cannot bleeping wait for this Stanley Cup stuff to be over because whenever it is that we get obsessed with basketball or hockey playoffs or just local sports in general, people end up getting mad at us. But I want to address Jessica's question here when she asked, how do you think Roy enjoyed his Father's Day? Because Lewis in video came in today and asked the question, did anyone on Father's Day actually get what they wanted? Because most of the fathers I know on Father's Day want to be left alone and don't get what they wanted. And I am curious, did you guys have the Father's Days that you wanted? Did you
Yeah.
get the Father's Day you deserved?
Yeah, I wanted that. My wife asked me, do I want to go on the boat? Do I want to play golf? Do I want to do anything? I said, no, I want to take a bunch of gummies and sit there on that couch and not be moved. I want to watch a bunch of dudes turn left on a short oval. And I got to do just that. They were in Iowa.
The Iowa Corn 350,
Yeah.
I believe.
Powered by
what
ethanol.
a name.
Watch Rory collapse?
I watched some of that. That was on the second TV. I enjoyed Rory
Second
missing.
TV?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, there was the UFL championship. I had to watch Tom Brady call a game. Euros are going on. We're in the middle, like this week, Copa America and Euro are going to be going on at the exact same time. Summer soccer equinox. I was also watching the time trials in Indianapolis for a swimming team. I was all over. It was a perfect Sunday. I didn't move.
Billy?
Me and my daughter's got matching pajamas.
Oh.
Lest you think he is simply a character, the entitlement of Stugotz knows no bounds. He just looked into the shipping container and said, how about instead of an 8:30 tip, you give me an 8 o'clock start, and you give me the basketball on Sunday night, and you give me the hockey game tonight. He does not care how long it takes to travel to any of these places, how hard it is to schedule stuff. He just wants his games when he wants them, and he wants the tip-off to be a half hour earlier, and 24 hours and a half hour earlier. He wanted 8 p.m. last night, even though these teams have to travel. And in the case of Florida and Edmonton, it's a hell of a flight.
If they play the game on Sunday night, actually the NBA Finals, I would have asked for a 7:30 tip on a Sunday night, Father's Day. How you don't have an NBA Finals game Sunday after the U.S. Open on Father's Day? Everyone's home. Everyone's hanging out. Dan, that is a disgrace. I am serious.
A disgrace.
You have to have the NBA game Sunday, the Stanley Cup Final tonight. What are we doing? And I'm sorry, I don't care about the travel. Those teams are traveling on private jets. I don't want to hear about it. Get to South Florida and play a hockey game tonight.
That's why the UFL got it right. Championship game, Father's Day, 6 p.m. Everyone was glued to it.
Yep.
I think that fathers are out at 6 p.m. on Father's Day. They're having Father's Day dinner, are they not? All I saw, I couldn't get a reservation at a place I was trying to get into.
We were feasting on Rory's tears. That's what we were doing. I mean,
I thought
delicious Father's Day dinner.
Father's Day was 6 p.m. last night. I thought that's when people are not gathering around a television. They're gathering at dinner. Certainly at the restaurant I was trying to get into, that's where they were, because it cleared out shortly afterward. It got a lot younger the moment it is that the fathers got out of there.
Good planning by you.
Yeah. Did you get the resi? Or,
no, I didn't get the resi.
Drop the name?
I had to go later. I did not. I do not do that.
To be fair, the restaurant's called Poppy Steak. I mean, it's obviously a Father's Day destination.
Mm-hmm.
The 6 p.m. call time surprised both me and the restaurant. They were not expecting to be full. They're usually slower on Sunday nights. They were not expecting a 6 p.m. rush of old dads who have to eat early. But I don't think of 6 p.m. on Father's Day, other than, Billy wearing his pajamas with his daughters. I don't think of 6 p.m. Father's Day being home. I think of it like, what is it, brunch? Like, what do you guys do on Father's
brunch,
Day?
Yeah.
Stu,
get it over with. Yeah.
Stu, I'm curious how your experience with Father's Day went now that your kids are off in school. And it was also the rare Father's Day that also lands on your wife's birthday. So you were not even considered yesterday.
I was not considered. Well, it's interesting. We had this conversation. Which one carries more weight around the house? A birthday? Which one takes precedent?
Birthday.
A birthday?
Yeah.
It does, huh?
Well,
Father's Day moves around.
I learned yesterday, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm learning it, but I didn't verify it. I didn't go look it up, but that Father's Day was created as simply a commercial holiday because mothers already had a day. June was a time where commerce slowed down and they needed something.
They're all commercial.
Of course, but that Father's Day was specifically created as a reaction to June is slow as a commerce time, and this is a way to get the economy to be filled in a way that Mother's Day does it with restaurants.
Engagement rings, that was totally made up by a jewelry company. They just manifested that being a tradition, that you would spend 3 months' salary on a ring to just ask someone to marry you.
And I heard the diamond market in free fall right now because those lab-grown diamonds, they look real. Everyone says, oh, you can tell. You can't tell. Trust me.
Is the 4th of July real? Do we know? I mean,
No, that's made up.
Okay.
Anthony Edwards and Manny Ramirez both would wear $40 earrings that people thought were actually very expensive because they're just trying to give off the look instead of...
4th of July was not made commercially. It was not really like the commercial...
Is it real?
Where were you going
aspects.
with that question? Because I kind of
We're
ended
not
that, and
considering
there's
that.
something that I wonder where that path
But
is
Halloween
taking
This
us.
is what you two do. He throws
Well,
it to you.
I feel like that
he
was
throws it
beneficial to the
he
show
throws
ending
it
that
to
right
you.
away.
He throws it to you. You agree. You throw it to him. He agrees, and there is nothing else. It's just
Is Christmas real?
4
I
syllables.
kept us moving on that one.
So Mother's Day was since the dawn of time, and then like someone was like, "Hey, there should be a Father's Day too." How did Mother's Day come about?
It's got to be the same way, I would imagine. We should look that up. Let me ask you guys something that happened over the weekend that I thought was super awkward at how it happened, and it didn't seem like anybody was prepared for it in any way. Charles Barkley retired, and he did so his own way, but he was on the set with a bunch of people he's not normally on the set with. It's a post-game show, and it's not part of what it is that they do every night that's so popular. It was with not the normal people. It was
NBA TV, right? It was Steve Smith.
It was really an unusual place for him in the middle of the night after a game to just tell everybody, and I've decided to retire. And then TNT's statement is, we're going to discuss all of this with Charles. Like that we don't, he just caught us off guard. And Charles can say whatever that he wants, but they're going to try to talk him out of this. And at the very least, that's not the way they wanted him to do it. And of course, Charles Barkley doesn't care how you want him to do it. But what did you make of all of it?
I'm not certain that he's going to retire. It was an odd spot to do it, an odd place to do it. You would think he would do it with Ernie and Kenny and Shaq and make some sort of announcement. I understand why TNT and Turner would want that. I think Barkley is emotional right now. I think they're all emotional. They should be. I'm not certain that Charles Barkley, because he's going to have so many offers and so many opportunities, be it at Turner or ESPN or elsewhere, I'm not certain if he's just caught up in the emotion or he's actually going to go through with it.
I will tell you, when he was considering the live stuff and, he was trying to talk himself into the idea of taking a ton of money because of what he could do to help people with that money, even though he was getting very strong advice to not do that. He really was hurting trying to make that decision. Now, I know all of us think these are maximum grade options. They're first world problems. You're getting millions of dollars. Why are you struggling with all of this? But he really struggled with that and then finally put a deadline on that because he was tired of going back and forth and hearing from a variety of different people. The amount of pressure that Barkley must feel to keep the whole thing together as it falls apart, because he's the centerpiece of the whole thing. And if they lose the rights and Ernie doesn't want to leave and the show gets ruined, he doesn't want to do it in some distorted form. I do believe Stugotz's analysis is right. He's tired of being emotional about this, and he just went emotion from the hip. I'm done. I don't want to feel this way anymore. I've told everyone no more interviews. Don't start calling me about this. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm tired at the end of a long season. I want to go on vacation. But he's legitimately tired of being pressured by all of the people who want him to work for them. Like, he's telling everybody go away when he could maximize the options on this and create enormous leverage. And he's saying that I'm tired of this right now.
Well, he could be creating enormous leverage. Keep in mind that this was an announcement that he'd be retiring after the following season. So he gets a year-long going away party. And you mentioned the Liv stuff. I recall prior to him negotiating with Liv, him saying he was never going to take another media job ever than what he had with Turner. He's been talking retirement openly and publicly for 5 years, and then he keeps re-upping. So I'd say, and to quote David Sampson, wait to see.
He's been hinting at retirement, like Mike said, a number of times,
it's not
and
hinting,
then re-signed.
Billy,
well, he
not
hasn't
hinting.
retired, so it is
No,
hinting.
I mean, it's not hinting. It's
Billy.
straight up lying about it.
Well, he hasn't retired yet. And also, there's reports that, the Turner deal, while they didn't get the deal that they had, they were trying to work something out with Turner, whether they broadcast, regional
Silver
games or
found,
whatever.
it's hilarious. Silver found another TV package under the couch. It was
they're
amazing.
now trying to work into TNT. So, the show may not even go away. We have a year to figure this out. But, if they rework Turner in the NBA and the show continues, you think that after this year he's still going to retire?
I don't know, because I think predicting his behavior can be very difficult because it hasn't been hinting at retirement. He has been talking publicly and privately about actually retiring at the age of 60, and he did surprise me when he signed another contract at the age of 60 because of how he's been talking about that for a while. He does want to slow down the amount of obligations that he has, but he hasn't been able to do it for whatever the reasons. I don't think that the reasons are just money, because I was surprised at everything that happened this weekend because he just signed another contract where it seemed to me, and it could be just public leverage, but he can be doing this privately. and still have that leverage.
And the initial Turner deal that he signed only added to his responsibilities. Now, the show has since been canceled, but he had a CNN show. He had other obligations that went into a larger deal with Turner. I think it's right to place some scrutiny on what his motivations are here, just because he's shown you that no matter all his talk, he does end up signing the big fat deals.
But at best, though, he's put his employer in the position of saying, wait a minute, hold on a second, publicly.
I'm a fan of what he's doing publicly because he's done like 3 media hits where he's very clearly applying public pressure against Turner, talking about his bosses with some contempt occasionally. Like he wants to negotiate this in the public space because that's where he's getting the most support. People understandably love that show and they don't want to see it go away. I did find it really funny that we just invented a 4th TV package that the kind folks at Turner are negotiating on presently.
His recent deal was a $100 million deal. I have a hard time seeing Barkley walking away from that kind of money.
Stugotz,
I do.
he just maybe.
I know what he did. I know what he
money,
said.
though.
Right.
Like,
It's 10 years. He signed a
I know,
10-year
I
deal
know.
and told you this is the first few months of a 10-year deal that he's telling you, I'm ready to walk away from whatever the rest of this deal is.
But it's not just money. Like in this industry, and like it doesn't matter who the person is. Like there's ego involved. You think that he's going to be fine with going on once a week, twice a week, whatever it is, every day or every week for 20 plus years to just disappearing without people knowing what he thinks about XYZ? Like it's not going to be an easy thing for him to just decide to do, money aside.
But Billy, he is approaching an age where one day it'll just do the math for him, right? Like he has made a ton of money, and we are getting to that point north of 60 where you can actually start legitimately saying these are real threats because he's been talking retirement since his early 50s.
But he signed up for 70.
I know. That's the proof is in the pudding. Right. Like he if there is a huge pile of money and someone goes the extra mile for him, he generally takes it.
Billy, you think he's not going to have other options to do whatever the hell he wants?
Well, he's not going to retire. He's going to do something.
Yeah, and so he'd have whatever options that he wants.
Yes.
He could create whatever job that he wishes to create on his own time. He's got maximum freedom.
Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day.
What happened, Stugots?
I don't know. Monday happened.
It's early.
It is, yeah.
Zeros look like ones.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Joe Mazzulla was in Kyrie Irving's draft class.
Come on.
He was also in Kemba Walker's, Isaiah Thomas's,
What?
Jimmy Butler's, Kawhi's, Clay.
Huh.
The coach of the Boston Celtics is very young.
The Boston Celtics now trail the Mavericks in point differential for this series, a series in which they're leading 3-1. Tom Haberstroh had the tweet that we're going to see something that we've never seen before, no matter who lifts the trophy, because no team has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit in the NBA Finals, and no team's ever won the championship having lost a game in the series by 38 or more.
I got to tell you, Dan, the fact that I saw that Luka can move, can hustle, can play defense, only makes games 1 through 3 more inexcusable. Are you kidding me? He was so bad games 1, 2, and 3. He was good in game 4, but he can move. He can run. He can sprint. He can play defense. It's not great defense, but at least it's not Matador defense. It was defense. He was trying. He was giving effort. What happened in game 1, 2, and 3? Someone explain it to me, because that is the worst display from a great player in the history of the NBA Finals.
Oh, come on.
Oh, Dan,
Stugots.
seriously.
Come on,
He didn't play
Stugots.
defense. It was
Stugots.
5-on-4 for 3 games.
He's never been good at defense, and the last thing you saw tends to be the most in the history of the league, as if you forget.
Saw him hustle.
You forgot LeBron James losing to Dirk? Like, you forgot that?
He did respond in kind to, I thought, if you could ever find valid criticism for a player such as Luka, who we all understand, he's tired. Yeah, he doesn't have the greatest conditioning. He's asked to do everything. He's got Tim Hardaway Jr. as his third leading scorer on his team. Tim Hardaway Jr. went an entire month without hitting a shot from the field. I think we all understand that, but also he was so bad game 3. That was so embarrassing. Like, he was such a baby about it. He was cursing at his sideline for not challenging stuff. He turned 50-50 balls into 70-30 balls with his lack of conditioning. He was just so bad that the great ones usually respond to performances like that. And yeah, it's not Bruce Bowen type defense, but for him, that's all they need.
All right, let's examine, though, for a second what happened after or toward the end of Game 3, because the Boston Celtics were dying to choke away that game. Like, fadeaway jumper after fadeaway jumper, giving up a 20-point lead. And then Luka, when you're telling him, hey, Luka, play defense, he decides, I'm going to play it out here on Jaylen Brown to get my 6th foul out here, challenge it. And then, of course, they lose the game because Boston was dying to lose that basketball game in a way that made everybody rise up and confirm all the doubts that they have about that. Not all the doubts. The only doubt that exists about that basketball team is toward the end of games. And it was on display when Luka did the whining thing that made Brian Windhorst go after him on air in a way I don't think Brian Windhorst has ever done to a player, because, yes, you expect more from him, and he was bad in those 3 games. Bad for him. And defensively, we gave the stat last week. That's true, that no one has been blown by as much as Luka has been, because he's never been any good at defense. He's not any good at defense, and we're always wondering whether or not he's in shape or not. But he's capable of doing what he did in Game 4 at any given point.
We'll do it every game then. If you could do it in Game 4, do it in games 1 through 3.
But the Celtics present a series of problems like, okay, Tatum, do it every game. They're playing at the top of the sport. They're playing the very best. Are playing against each other, and sometimes they're going to neutralize each other.
But
they're going to make each other look like that.
I understand that. With Tatum, though, I'm never, or anyone else in that series, I'm not questioning effort. Mike and I are questioning the effort of Luka, especially on the defensive end. Like,
I understand why he's tired because they're targeting him, but when you're that fatigued, you make bad decisions, such as trying to draw a charge out on the perimeter in a way that even Luka won't get that call, and he's had a very friendly whistle. All they need is for what he did in Game 4, which was just be a little bit more aggressive, because you're only making yourself – it's a cycle. You're only making yourself more tired by having to expend that much more energy trying to climb out of these holes. Help yourself on the offensive end by putting in a respectable effort on the defensive end. He deserved the criticism as much as any star who's ever almost solely responsible for his team's success. He put his team in really bad spots, and he just kept compounding it, and then he started getting petulant. It's always impressive when you're not the biggest baby on a court that also features Jason Tatum.
I'm not objecting to the appraisal that he hasn't played well. I'm objecting to Stugotz's that's the worst thing that I've ever seen in the history of the finals.
It took him 4 games to suddenly wake up and decide, hey, I have to play defense. I mean,
he's also carrying an injury, which for a limited defender, that doesn't help matters. He's got to get more help also defensively from his teammates, but it's like you had very curious Game 4s in both sports where you see a path where these teams look just so overwhelming, and you've wondered, where has this been all series? And with all the time in between games, you can talk yourself into both teams blowing a 3-0 lead.
Put it on the poll, please, Juju. Did you know Missoula was in the same draft class as Kyrie Irving? And when I mentioned to Stugotz that this can happen to great players, Luka's performance allows us to not look anymore at Kyrie's performance in the first 2 games. I have found hugely interesting what Kyrie is saying publicly. I have not seen a lot of athletes do this when the Piranha are feeding, when you're 0-13. He had been against the Celtics since stepping on the Leprechaun, and he was talking about the self-doubt involved in going into Boston and not fitting in what he's calling a cult. And he's taking his responsibility for that, Stugotz, in a way that is refreshing and, to me, surprising. Let's listen to Kyrie Irving here before he heads back into Boston, because I was telling you, Stugotz, that when the history is written right in front of us on who these people are, Kyrie Irving has an opportunity tonight to do something really special and memorable by simply being the Kyrie Irving that he can often be. Luka gets the criticism because of everything that happened at Game 3, where he spends a lot of time complaining about the refs, but I also understand anybody who complains about the refs because, Stugotz, these guys are getting fouled all the time.
I know. Windhorst explained why he was so adamant afterwards and so emotional afterwards, and he explained it actually this morning. I was listening on the way in, where he said, going back now 7 or 8 years, the people surrounding Luka have begged him to stop with the complaining and the officials. Just stop. Focus your energy on the stuff that you can control. Stop focusing any negative energy on the referees.
It's so much easier said than done, Stugots. I was thinking about this with Doc Rivers the other day. Like, Doc Rivers, this is funny, okay? Because Doc Rivers went on Simmons' podcast and now says Damian Lillard was out of shape and that he was going through a divorce and he didn't want to get hurt when he knew he was going to get traded. And so he's putting out there all the things that Doc Rivers does when he doesn't want to be accountable for the fact that they were terrible at the end of the season when he got there. People are making fun of the fact that Doc Rivers has also said that Philly fans are to blame for why it is that they didn't win in Philadelphia when the year before Doc got there, they were 31-4 at home in Philadelphia. But I got to thinking about this. If you're Doc Rivers, is it anyone's human nature to actually be accountable when things go wrong on you?
Nope.
When things go wrong on you, if you're foul, if you don't make the shot, do you think any of us would just not be talking about the referees if we thought we were getting fouled? Like, if we thought the reason we weren't succeeding is because the refs were doing that to us, it's very easy for everyone to say, hey, care a whole lot, but right up until you object to somebody else preventing you from doing your job, that's where you should ignore them and be accountable. It's good advice from Windhorst, but I don't think it's practical. Like, I don't think that that's the way human beings behave.
But it was also a pretty rare example where it was pretty obvious to everyone, and the only people offering a rebuttal are diehard Mavericks fans. That was Neymar levels of flopping around, and it was just an unprofessional look. He looked like a child there, and I think Brian Windhorst was right to call into account, like, a lot of these things, and this is the elephant in the room, a lot of these things are a byproduct of your general approach to the game. So if you're not going to be a professional about your conditioning, if you're not going to be that professional, even though you're limited defensively in part because of your conditioning, then be a professional on the court and don't compound the issues by causing your team technicals, by getting yourself out of the game because you think you're owed a makeup, by just being how you were on the court because it made a bad situation worse.
Despite the call, whether you agree with it or not, and that is not the time to try to go out 30 feet from the basket and make a play defensively.
Stugotz,
he needs to stay in the game.
I want to be clear on this. I am not defending Luka's childishness. I just understand why at 25, Luka would still be a child. I'm saying you got to grow out of it. You have to be more professional than that. And I'm also saying it's easier said than done. Luka, all your life, you have been on a platter going, and I don't know what his life was like before this, but he got out of whatever it is that he was in because 10 years everyone have been serving that child everything he wants everywhere because he's a savior and he gets everything in the world he wants, even though he's drinking beers and looking like he's got a pot belly and still dominating, still getting stardom, still getting every reward, and just took out everybody in the West. Behaving that way, not changing his behavior any. I get why he's childish, and I also get why it has to change.
But that's why we say teams have to suffer. That is a blanket statement, and now we're getting in the minutia of what it means to suffer. And for Luka, it means not just losing a title. It means not just losing any chance at a series because you're performing like that. Because you realize that you can only go so far with your general approach to the game right now, and that needs to change. It's things like being called out by guys like Brian Windhorst who don't do that. Like, that's where the suffering, the pain comes. You learn from it, and you realize, I'm not going to stand for that anymore.
All right, another episode of Shootout Showdown. I'm notoriously terrible at these. We've brought in Jess in.
Notorious?
The last time we did this was when we had the football team with the colleges and we had to decide what team it was.
Yeah, and I kicked your ass.
And it was a 4-0 sweep. I was telling Taylor that I didn't have my best day that day. I didn't have the fastball with me. You knew early that I didn't have it.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what the categories is. Top 10 max shows of all time according to Esquire, which I really don't like to start.
Okay. Max as in HBO's streaming service.
Correct.
Got it. I was hoping you were going to say top 10 Maction shows.
Yeah, when I heard Mac, I was like, damn, all right, let me think of Toledo. All right, since... I'm
going first.
Yes, you're
top
going
10
first.
Max shows of all time according to Esquire. Number 1, it has to be The Sopranos. Okay, so that's number 2.
Number 1, Game of Thrones. What? Wow.
Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Oh, low. Let's go with Boardwalk Empire. What?
That was a good show,
It was
but
a great show.
I don't think a lot of people watched it. I'm going to guess this one, but I think only the first season was great. Westworld. Damn.
First season was great. I'm gonna go Sex in the City. Let's go.
Okay, I'm gonna need a minute now.
No, there's no minute. This
I'm
is Shootout Showdown.
I'm racking my brain.
This is Shootout Showdown. There's no minutes.
I know. This is. You come in and you think to yourself, I know every Max show that's ever been made. This is gonna be so easy. And then you're in front of the camera, and your brain just turns to just static. Actually, my brain just turned into the like. Shh. Okay.
But I think of the Sopranos music every time that happens, so it's hard because you already said it.
Morning, got myself a gun. Okay, hang on. I have to think of something.
This is
When did this list come out, by the way?
current. I mean, there's got to be a time limit.
Okay, just give me a second. This is pissing me off. I can't think of anything. Okay, give me 30 more seconds. You can cut out the 30 seconds.
Oh boy. Wow, you just started it?
Totally
I had it 10 seconds in.
I'm totally blanking right now. House of the Dragon.
There's no way. No way.
I can't think of another show. Like, I'm completely blanking right now. God, I can't let Tony beat me.
Let's do. This is an oldie, but it's a classic HBO show, Oz. Hey, well, okay, hey, this is discriminatory.
It's okay, because I can't even think of a single show. I can't even think
I've given you two bangers.
This is the worst penalty kick shootout since the U.S. Women's National Team lost in the World Cup, okay?
I've given you two bangers, and they're not on the list because Esquire says so? Give me a break.
I'm going to be so mad when I hear the answers, because I've seen every single show that's ever been on Max, and I can't think of anything.
I can't believe Oz isn't there, and I can't believe Boardwalk Empire isn't there.
Let me think. I can't think. Hard Knocks.
No, HBO.
I mean, it shouldn't be.
True Detective.
What? Oh
Hey, this is a Fugazi list.
So we both lost. It's going to be the most obvious thing ever, right? Shoot.
I already said Game of Thrones.
I know.
You said
but
House of the
that's not
Dragon.
number one. Well, the final season was not very good.
Still, but like everybody was watching.
It's not so
How is the first season of True Detective not on the list? That's a crime.
I wanted sheets
How
so
did you
bad,
find
but
this
I
list,
can't.
by the way? No hints.
I know it. I'm just like I have
No
stage
hints. This
fright.
is crazy. There's no hints. This is crazy. There's no hints, dude. No, don't.
I'm trying to. I'm so mad.
According to Esquire, just
I've seen every show on Max. I just can't think right now because the lights are on me.
we've said a lot of them that haven't been on the list. This is crazy. No, this is crazy. That was crazy. She's literally mouthing something to
And
her.
I still am
That's
not getting
insane.
it.
That's insane.
No.
That's insane. All right.
Wait, I thought that was.
No, it's sudden death. So it's like whoever actually gets one wins. Let me think.
I'm so annoyed right now. This is embarrassing. I'm so embarrassed right now in myself. By the way, this is embarrassing for me.
Let's go The Wire.
Oh, god damn it! Oh, I love The Leftovers.
Succession.
I love Succession. Ah, Veep. I love Veep. God damn it.
Deadwood over That's crazy. And Oz too.
I just hurt myself hitting myself with
Esquire
a microphone.
do better. That was embarrassing.
Veep is my favorite show of all time.
Veep is
literally the best show that's ever been made. This is
not good enough for you
me
to
to remember
it.
it seems fairly obvious at this point, Stugots, that we are going to overcover the holy hell out of every flagrant foul on Caitlin Clark. But I ask this question sincerely. When is that going to stop? When, like, obviously it's not going to stop yesterday, but when is it going to stop that that the way that we enter these conversations about games that are being played here has the famous player been hit in the head too hard by somebody while driving to the basket? Like, is that going to stop anytime soon?
I have no idea. I don't know if we're equipped to discuss this the way we probably should discuss this, so we keep falling back on the same exact thing and the same exact topic. Now, Angel Reese lent some to the conversation, but she was asked about it after the game. And she said she was making a basketball play, and she said there must be a special whistle. I love the idea of a special whistle. I do. I got to be honest with you.
I think her point about the whistle was that she was fouled a few times and they didn't call it.
Right.
I don't think I don't think that had anything to do with the attempt to block.
He just wanted to talk about the special whistle.
That would be
the
fun.
idea of a special whistle.
I'm with him on that.
Yeah.
What's it sound like?
Yeah. I stopped in mid-take, and I just a special whistle.
Does it sound different? Does it look different?
I'm imagining like when Jordan played, there was a whistle for everyone else and a whistle for Jordan. Because if you did anything to anyone else, it wasn't a foul. But if you did it to Jordan, then the Jordan whistle would come out, and that's a special whistle. I just like the idea of a special whistle. Let's build it out.
It really is all you had here, is to say we don't know how to talk about this, and therefore I'm just going to misunderstand something that Angel Reese said and just talk about this idea that I have for a special whistle. Let's play the Angel Reese sound here real quick for the people.
For inside, I think we were playing really hard. I think we went up really strong a lot of times, and we didn't get a lot of calls. And going back and looking at the film, I've seen a lot of calls that weren't made. I guess some people got a special whistle.
We're not going to be able to get this out of sports, the complaining about the refereeing, right? Like, it's just not something that ever – having done this for as long as we've done this, I know it's as old as time in sports to complain about the umpiring or the officiating. And I will acknowledge that in many places it's terrible, so I understand why we spend so much time complaining about it. But I also find it just unendingly empty. Like, you understand so much of what's happening in sports is decided by all sorts of randomnesses, all sorts of tiny little small things, mistakes made by an assortment of human beings. Mm-hmm. And the amount of time that we spend complaining about officials is crazy to me. But yet I understand why players invested in competing, not just competing for winning, but competing for money, would at every turn see something that diminishes their performance and say, well, it's not the mirror. It's not me. It's not because I've failed to do something. It's because of an assortment of extenuating circumstances that involve the officiating. I just don't know how that sounds to the ear if you're someone who likes programming, just sports programming, to perpetually hear everybody talking about the judges, the rulers.
I think on the one hand, if I were a player and I were really frustrated about the inconsistent officiating in the WNBA, I would say something about it in my press conference too. And on the other hand, it doesn't seem like it's going to change anytime soon. There was also a really controversial call in the Skies game on Friday against the Mystics where a player got a technical for, I think she said, ball don't lie or something to the ref, and he was like, you're out of here. So, like, it's just bad a lot of the time, and I don't think she's wrong. But, yeah, I get it. Like, there's nothing fans can do about it, and the officiating just isn't going to get better out of nowhere.
But of course it's bad a lot of the time. I've said this before about pro sports, Stugots, that the athleticism is such that the people who are even at the high end of officiating, that they're failing all the time because there are a million things that can be called anywhere. So, of course, if you drop down levels to college football, to high school football, to women's basketball that's growing, but you have your top-end officials elsewhere, and they're failing all the time too, And now you go into the other sports, there aren't enough people who are good at this or exceptional at it for it to be consistent anywhere in sports. But of course, it's going to be worse in the places that haven't yet caught up to where the money, the attention is, where the coverage is, that eradicates some of this, because we shame Angel Hernandez after 30 years out of the sport because too many things are being decided by incompetence. No, but if it's something that can't be done well by anybody at the highest levels, if it's something that has error at the highest levels, then of course it's going to have errors everywhere else where you're not paying them the way that you pay the people who are at the highest levels.
If you don't want us to talk about it anymore, the refs should stop cheating.
Well, how about this? You guys, but you guys saw quietly this weekend an ump was disciplined for gambling?
Yeah. Well, no, we don't know if it was the sport or if that matters at all, but it wasn't baseball. But yeah, like I said.
Well, no, we know it wasn't baseball because he was disciplined and not gone.
All right. Well, they should stop cheating. Yeah. And I'll stop complaining about the refs. How about the refs stop cheating? I'll stop complaining.
He also, I think, is like historically or presently like the second most accurate umpire. It's just a weird story.
Yeah, we lost a good one.
How about the players stop complaining about the officials?
You would too. You would too.
Especially when they cheat.
But Luka spends the entire game complaining about the officials. Angel Reese in the postgame, she's complaining about the officials. She was 4 of 11, I believe, last night.
Caitlin Clark also complains. Like every player that plays the game complains about the officials. And a lot of the time, they have a point. That's all. You shouldn't harass the referees or the umpires if you're a fan. However, if you're a player, I get why
because
you're complaining a lot.
Right. I mean, Angel Reese was 4 of 13. Worry about that. Worry about your
jumper.
jumper.
She's playing really well, Stugots.
4 of 13.
You haven't watched her play
who's
a
playing
single game.
You are wrong.
She's
I will tell you.
She's breaking records for doubles as a rookie.
I don't care. Percentage, terrible. I will tell you who's playing great. Hold on. I have watched it. Caitlin Clark and the Fever are starting to play great. They've won 3 or 4, I believe. Caitlin nearly had a triple-double yesterday. Her shooting percentage is exceptional. She's playing
Field goal percentage for bigs is in that sport are different than like the men's version.
4 of 13. You're going to complain about the officiating
Angel Reese
afterwards?
is playing really well. She's probably going to be the rookie of the month in the WNBA. Yeah. But okay, and Caitlin Clark is also playing well. Sure, I'll get
rookie of the month.
She's also playing well, but I will
Rom.
The Fever are also playing worse teams at this point in their schedule than they did when they started the season. We were like, oh my god, they're so bad. This is how it works.
You understand how it's easier for someone that's 7'3".
I do, yeah.
All right.
Can I go back to this umpire for a second? We've talked about how in sports, the punishment is determined by how good you are. If you're really good, you could punch Pat Riley in the face and still start. If you're bad and you do something, you're gone.
Unless you're Angel Hernandez.
Billy mentioned this umpire being the most accurate. He is known as the best ball strike umpire in MLB. In Game 2 of the 2022 World Series, he called all 129 balls and strikes correctly.
Yeah, I learned recently that there was a perfect game in the World Series because of this story.
What?
Yeah. There was a perfect game in the World Series in 2022.
This guy's so good, he should be allowed to gamble.
Huh.
Not on baseball, but I'm okay with him gambling on other sports. He's that good.
It's Pat Hoberg is his name, and it has to be a gambling incident. If he's been disciplined and is still in the sport and it's just discipline, it has to be a minor infraction, correct? It has to be like he walked into a casino or something.
Who threw it in 2022? Was it a team effort?
I got to see. I don't know if that's when the perfect game was.
If you would have told me when I was a kid that there would have been a perfect game in the World Series and I would be learning about it 2 years later and no one would have a name for me.
I don't think there was a perfect game in the World Series. I think he umpired a perfect game in the World Series.
Got all
I think
100,
you read that wrong.
Yeah.
I think there has not been a perfect game
that
in the
would
World
be a big
Series.
deal.
Don Larson.
We would have known.
There was
yes,
a combined
Don
no-hitter
Larson.
in the 2022 World Series.
That was the Astros.
This is Game 2 that he threw he called his perfect game where he got all 129 balls and strike calls correctly.
Whoa! So they have perfect games for umps too?
Yeah.
That's confusing.
Uh-huh.
That's why I'm saying he should be allowed to gamble.
But no one celebrates umpire perfect games except Mike Schur. Like he's the only one.
We should celebrate them. Who's keeping track of these things?
I don't know.
There
should find them.
there are umpiring databases that are keeping track of how well or how poorly these guys are doing.
We always complain when the refs get it wrong. We never admit when they got it right. And they did get the call right on the block shot yesterday. And that's all there is to it. Sometimes you miss the ball and you hit a player and then you get called for a foul and then that's the end of the story. And that's really the end of the story. Now, was yesterday a terrible day for me because the Sky lost and then I watched Madam Web? Yes, it was. And that was my Father's Day. Watching that terrible movie that I missed a major plot point of, found out this morning when I was listening to How Did This Get Made live show recap of it. This movie was really bad. And it was so bad that like I expected it to be like, oh, it's funny. It's so bad that it's funny. No, it was boring and bad.
Yeah, they remind you of what era it's in constantly with like, did you catch Idol last night?
And it wasn't The Idol, which I mean, come on.
Apparently, they just started tracking the umpires like this in 2020. So since 2020, it's the only perfect game.
Okay, we can't be calling this a perfect game.
We can be.
No, it's so confusing.
What do you mean?
I'll go the other way on
so
this.
So confused, you thought it was a pitcher.
If we're going to spend this much time complaining about the referees,
it was a little striking that no one knew for sure if there was a perfect game done by a pitcher in 2022.
I did know for sure. It just took me a minute to register whether or not that combined bullpen no-hitter was a perfect game or not. I couldn't remember, and I'm thinking to myself, is that something that could have happened without anyone noticing? Anyone on our show or anyone listening to this? That's not something that could have happened, is it? But I do think we need to celebrate more the fact that Pat Hoberg had a perfect game and we're only learning about it when he's being disciplined for gambling seems really unfair to officials. If we're going to spend all our time complaining and bitching about when they get everything wrong, the idea that someone could be quietly perfect in sports and no one would notice or care seems unfair if we're only going to celebrate this man when he gets in trouble for gambling.
And then I found out that Adam Scott, his name was Ben in the movie. What? And there's a baby born at the end of the movie. And I think you're supposed to be like, oh, he's Uncle Ben.
Yeah,
the baby is Spider-Man. That's why it was in 2003. Yeah. But how was I supposed to know that from watching the movie? I mean, it was completely out of the blue, out of nowhere. There's two secret spider power people in the same friend group? Weird. In 2003? That doesn't make any sense.
Shitty Sunday.
Terrible Sunday.
And then you got to watch the coverage of Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark.
I muted all of those people.
That was his first World Series game, too, when he got the perfect game. Imagine that. You work your whole life.
What?
You finally get to a World Series game, and you call a perfect game. The first one in recorded history.
Will it be his last?
Now since 2020.
Yeah.
That's right. The first one in recorded history because we weren't recording this stuff with technology before 2020. I did want to get back to and circle back around on this Kyrie Irving sound, Stugots, that I wanted to play for you because I do think it's unusual. It will buy him nothing tonight. Boston hates him, and when Boston hates, you don't really want to be on the end of Boston hating. It's a cruel and unpleasant thing for anybody to be on the end of, but a black athlete being on the wrong end of Boston's hate is particularly unpleasant. But whatever Kyrie Irving's scars are here, Stugots, I do think that the stomping of the leprechaun, the going 0-13 against the Celtics since then, Kyrie Irving returning to Boston, I don't know that there's a more unpleasant feeling that anyone tonight would be overcoming than him. I don't know if there's anyone who's playing for either of the teams tonight who's talking publicly about self-doubt and how bad he was when they played in Boston, because that is just general human discomfort. And I know we think of these guys as superhuman, but him going back to a place that he tried to physically sage, Stugots, because the way that he feels emotionally about everything that was there is poison to him, and he refers to not fitting in a cult. Let's listen to Kyrie Irving.
They have championship pedigree here. They've shown it for years. They're one of the most winningest franchise in all of sports. So you have to show your respects here, and I think that's what I struggled with initially, was figuring out how I'm going to be a great player here while winning championships, while also leading a team and selflessly joining the Celtics organization or the cult that they have here. And that's what they expect you to do as a player. They expect you to seamlessly buy into the Celtics pride, buy into everything Celtics, and if you don't, then you'll be outed. And I'm one of the people that's on the outs.
That sounds humbled to me, and it will buy him nothing. Nothing.
It will buy him poorer treatment from the Celtic fans because he called them a cult.
I don't think it's going to be any poorer than it's been. I think they're
might
at
thank
maximum.
him for being humble.
I think they're maximum. They're not going to thank him for anything.
Thank you for being humble in your last press conference.
There is one dude, like 2 fans in Celtics pride garb, saying, "Hey, wait a second." He made a pretty nuanced point that showed his own personal growth. Maybe we shouldn't say that about his family.
Let's grow too. Let's grow. No, telling the crowd.
Keep thinking. Keep working it out. Keep seeing if you can find a chant that helps 2 fans in Boston celebrate Kyrie Irving's maturity.
Where's that ticket at? Any update on that situation?
I've only gotten 1 tweet, so my inboxes are open, people. Reach out to me.
Well, what was the number?
1,900 is the highest offer.
So we're off from the 3,000 your wife wants.
That's what she's asking for.
Do you believe if your wife gets a $3,000 offer for Game 5 of the Stanley Cup tomorrow here in Sunrise, do you believe if that offer comes through that you will be going to the game with a fan instead of your wife? Like, I think we can get that offer if we promise it. I don't believe that we will get that offer if it's not being promised.
Well, hold on. Have you run the $1,900 offer by her yet?
Ooh, someone just responded to that with a $1,902 and a gummy.
Wow. Run that by her. Well, who gets the gummy? Hold on a second.
I see
Are you
got
getting
my
the
text.
gummy or is she?
A single gummy? Like what?
Yeah, but this is the good stuff.
This feels
vegan too.
Not
made from horse bones.
This feels like one of these eBay fake offers. It doesn't feel like somebody, like as soon as you verify this offer, you will find out there's no gummy and no $1,900. Maybe the $2, but that's it.
This is like when you're on a flight and they're asking for volunteers and you have to wait until the last minute to take the offer because the win-win is really high for you. Like, but either way, you're either going to the game with your wife or you're not, and you have $3,000 in a gummy. So you have to wait until puck drops tomorrow night to make a call on this.
Flash deals. That's what that sounds like.
Just amongst friends, which would you rather? Go to the game with your wife or $1,900 in a gummy with a stranger? Just amongst friends.
But you're splitting the $1,900 with her at least.
And you're hoping that
50-50.
this
But not the gummy?
stranger's well-intentioned and this isn't the last we see of you.
I would also pay $1,900 to not sit with a stranger.
Chris Cody
my
is
wife
soothing himself right now, soothing his arm. He's like, his body language is all soothing.
If my wife can come up with a gummy, she can go.
Wow, at this
Where's
point,
she gonna
Chris,
find one
hold
of
on
those?
a second. At this point, you should start a bidding war between a stranger and your wife for the ticket,
Just
right?
go to your bedside table.
I've got a second hiding spot.
The gummy is the deal, is the tiebreaker, the gummy.
I could have used a gummy when I watched Madam Web yesterday. I think it would have
I
been a
tried.
lot
It doesn't
better.
help.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't help.
Stugotz, I wanted to ask you something that some people were questioning me about that I had not considered from last week. Over the weekend, I got an assortment of people reaching out to me, asking me if I would have made a decision that I made last week if I had known some things that became known after last week, which is, would we have taken Dan Hurley if we had known that that was going to be such an orchestrated media tour that was wildly unusual under the circumstances for a coach just going back to his own job? Dan Hurley came on with us first, and I was told that it was just 2 stops. It was us and Colin Cowherd.
Right.
That's what I was told. And then he did a full-on blitz of, I'm just going back to UConn. Like, it was all over the place. And what people were asking me is, do you realize you were used? Because I had not realized that we were among those used. I thought that we were getting some sort of special access to Dan Hurley when Dan Hurley was doing an orchestrated campaign. And the reason I bring this up is at least in part because of the ties to Woj and the ties to how parts of that story felt manufactured, Stugots. It can feel like through everything that happened, Woj and Hurley used the Lakers' position with CAA and everyone else to conjure an offer that wasn't good enough so that Dan Hurley could get coveted with Woj on ESPN. And for all the media touring that Dan Hurley did, where did he not appear? Not on ESPN.
Right.
And my answer to the question to everybody, even though I didn't realize that that could be a situation where a coach is manipulating the media in order to both curry public favor and control the narrative, is no, if we were first, I still would have taken him because we were first. We were going to get him first. But I had not considered before that the possibility that we would be being used.
You're used by every guest.
Yes.
Used by every guest that
And
comes
we
in
use
here.
them too.
We use each other.
Right.
That's
we got
the deal.
something. He got something. We
I'm
got
not.
him first.
Please
I'm good.
keep
Yeah.
using us. Guests,
Yes.
more guests use us.
But I'll tell you what, I would take him fifth. I would take him last.
Yeah.
I'll take him next
Been-
week. I'll take him every
Been
week.
refreshing.
I don't care.
I enjoyed being in the news cycle with a newsmaker, and that's nice. I'd like more of that. Use us all the time.
Yeah. I mean,
More people use us.
I saw my name. I saw your name on ESPN.com, all over ESPN. It felt good. It's been a minute. I felt good.
Yeah, I may privately think that there's some big plan that's hatched between agent and client and media affiliates. I don't care. We got aggregated. That's great.
That's all that matters.
Audience acquisition.
Attention is all that
No,
matters.
but also being able to talk to the newsmakers.
You should be honored that you were selected to be used.
Yes.
He's
Yes.
like, we gotta
Dan,
go. We want to go out and
Dan,
talk. So
Dan,
Howard,
if I may, your whole take on this is like an example as to why we're not being used plenty, because you get used and you complain about being used. Like, and then you want to say, why aren't more people using me?
I wasn't complaining about being used.
He's
I was something was put in front of me this weekend that it had not dawned on me. It was not something that I had considered before it happened, and it wasn't something that I considered after it happened. Only when I was asked the questions did I consider it.
I'm not sure he's using us any more than Patton Oswalt did.
No, Patton Oswalt used us so
Correct.
good.
Yeah.
Used us so good.
Mm-hmm.
Not that guy, huh? He made it seem like he was our friend. That was worse. Hurley didn't seem like he was our friend. He's just using us. Patton gave us hope.
You and Patton specifically had a thing.
Oh, no. I know that was fake now.
Oh, yeah. Used you.
Mm-hmm.
He was acting?
So attention is the only thing that we should crave?
Yep.
We entertain. We entertain. You aspire to some journalism because of your roots, and I think you did
occasional.
Yeah, but you did do the journalism. Like, you asked some good questions.
But what?
It's on
what
you.
else
If,
would it be?
if you know that's a social contract, it's incumbent upon you to try to differentiate yourself from the pack, knowing that more people are going to talk about this. This is clearly a coordinated effort to lift them in a positive light because that's a great story. The guy eschews the NBA and stays in his small town with his program that he's taken to unbelievable heights. It's your job as an interviewer to make your interview stand out. Yeah. And I think it did stand out, not just because of the timing on it, because it was first in the news cycle, but because of the natures of the questions that you were asking. So, yeah, great all around.
Now you wish even more that you just did 15 minutes on weather with him, don't you? Remember, you wanted to do that before.
Or Billy Joel.
I did want to do that with him.
The
I
Billy
did.
Joel
You
comment
guys-
didn't get aggregated somehow.
You guys talked me out of doing 15 minutes on just the flooding in Miami. I thought it would be funny. Yes.
That was a helpless feeling following along on the podcast in real time. Like, oh no, Dan Hurley's doing this and we're going to run bit with him. No, please no. And then you guys did a great interview with him.
We did sell it as an exclusive. That it was not. Yeah.
Well, it was. I thought
he
it
sold
was
it to us.
first. Yes, I thought it was first.
You were exclusively first.
And we bought it.
You were exclusive in that you were first. Yeah. And you did see the benefits of that.
Only one show could be first, Dan. I mean, can't do two at once.
If you're not first, you're last.
Right. Yeah.
That was helpful.
File.
I mean,
I'll go.
No, you don't have to go, but at least now this is growth. You're seeing it finally. You're seeing how useless you can be sometimes.
Well, that was quiet, so I was trying to fill it.
There's been a lot of growth on this show, I think.
At least it's finally a mirror. Finally, someone other than me sees it when you are just being gratuitously useless.
It's another theme of the show. That's a more broad sense.
We call them women now.
We have been talking for a long time here, more than 3 years, about sort of the ramifications, the repercussions of the pandemic and how many things have turned batshit crazy. Do we have any idea why it is that it's batshit and not another animal that gets assigned to the crazy? Because batshit is one that I don't understand.
Well, you can make a lot of things from guano.
It's linked to crazy.
He's right.
But one of the craziest things in the last 3 or 4 years, Stugots, and it's gotten so crazy that I do believe the public is largely numb to it, the descent of Aaron Rodgers from whatever it is you thought of him before to now being someone who is missing mandatory camp with the Jets, and a lot of people think it's because he's got an ayahuasca retreat. So now it's not drug use entirely the reason that he's missing mandatory camp, and ayahuasca is wildly misunderstood. So I know a lot of people listening to this, Mike has referred to it as tripping balls. What ayahuasca is actually is a spiritual journey that you're altered by I think it's a tree bark that makes you very sick and is supposed to be about killing the ego and showing you things about your life that you need to see so they can die. I've told you before that I've thought about doing it and I've always been too scared to get that kind of sick. But many people who do it and believe it call it life-altering. Say it will change that, DMT and other things, will change your entire perspective on how it is that you view the world. So whatever you think of ayahuasca, there still is the story of the Jets quarterback is missing mandatory camp and is going to be fined and is causing distractions with his team, apparently because he's got a spiritual retreat planned. Again, the reporting on
That's
this.
important to him, and Robert Saleh did not think it was important enough for him to miss a mandatory camp.
His spiritual journey is important to him, no matter what you make of his spiritual journey and whether you want to laugh at it or not. And his football coach doesn't care about his spiritual journey.
Right.
But to see that at the top of an organization and have it missing mandatory camp after everything else that has happened with Aaron Rodgers is fairly flabbergasting to see that as a choice being made by him.
I think what the coach is saying is, hey, take your spiritual journey on your own time, not on my time.
And what he's saying is, hey, coach.
You had the entire offseason, Dan.
No, I don't know, given the timing of these things, right? I don't know how special a ceremony this is. I don't know why it is that he can't be at mandatory camp because this thing.
This is all speculative.
It is all speculative.
Yeah.
It is all speculative.
And ayahuasca is supposed to kill the ego, according to you?
Yeah,
because it doesn't seem like his ego has been
killed.
Yeah.
He also reportedly went on one in March, right? I mean, I don't know the timeline.
I would say that if Lamar Jackson had a very obvious dip in play and his health started being affected and he publicly touted drugs as much as Aaron Rodgers does, it would be received a lot different. If purportedly Lamar Jackson wanted to step away from a mandatory camp because of something surrounding drugs, it would be received not the same way. It is for as much as he's in the news cycle, and a lot of it's his own doing, like he is living a charmed existence for whatever reason.
And to couch it as I'm searching for something, I'm searching for this, I'm trying to get rid of my ego, give me a break. You're tripping balls. Mike is right. Don't give me that. It's like Jim Morrison of the Doors. I don't want to hear about it. He takes acid, he takes LSD, he takes mushrooms, ayahuasca, whatever it is, because it feels good. That's
Okay.
why.
All right. That is not the way the people who do this talk about this, but I understand the skepticism about psychedelics, and I understand the skepticism about this. I'm simply telling you, because I don't believe anyone here has any expertise in talking to others who have gone down this path. I will tell you that my brother went down this path aggressively. And so I see when Aaron Rodgers does talk about some of this stuff, how he is talking about mind-altering as also mind-opening. And when it's mind-opening, one of the things that happens is football's pretty silly. Work is pretty silly. Jobs are pretty silly. We're talking about life and death stuff and connection to the spiritual world. And while I understand anyone listening to this dismissing it, I will just tell you that the people who believe in this kind of stuff do so fervently and would not dismiss
Work is silly is a much different message than anything that has to do without winning. Let's keep it out of this building.
Correct.
He also has the means to just retire if it's silly, so why not?
Correct.
Because he hasn't done enough to kill the ego.
Also, batshit comes from the popular phrase from around the turn of the previous century, to have bats in the belfry. The image compares bats in a church steeple to
Very
crazy
good.
ideas in a person's head. From there we get terms like batty and gone bats. That's from Quora.
Yeah. And I've recently, I tried a gummy for the first time in my life after 30. Like, I've just not really seen the appeal of drugs, but I am warming up to certain things. I do feel relaxed. It does get me in a better place. But most of the people that tell me to do ayahuasca aren't generally not people I would take their advice on anything from. And Aaron Rodgers does seem to fit that mold.
To answer Stugotz's question, because I know there's a lot to laugh at here and there's a lot to be skeptical of. But when Billy says, well, you can just retire, or when Stugotz gets mad at the Jets quarterback, he can have everything he wants because go ahead and do something about it. Somebody, go ahead and do something about it. Go ahead, Jets coach. Go ahead, Jets owner. Go ahead, league. Do something about it. The answer is you can't. You will not. He will do whatever he wants because he can. He can take
Rob
the
Saleh
money.
did do something about it. He said publicly
He fined him.
This is not an excused absence, and that's the byproduct of your decision right there. Is the consequences you get called out.
Well, let me be clear. I don't care. I understand why Salah's upset. I understand why fans are upset. But, Dan, he chose this organization. This is a desperate organization. They'll allow him to do anything as long as he shows up and plays quarterback every Sunday.
Well,
I'm serious.
But that's a big question.
Right.
You got to do it. Well, maybe not all that well, given what we saw to their defense
The bar's
and the
very
quarterback
low, Mike.
position, but
Yeah, yes.
he has slid quite a bit. And it does, on the timeline, it matches up with him approaching ages where we've literally only seen one guy do it at the same level.
Well, thank you for bringing that guy up, because I do believe that one of the distortions that has happened over the last 15 years, Stugots, as Tom Brady noticed, well, wait a minute. If LeBron's his own economy, then wait a minute. How valuable am I? Aaron Rodgers is testing all the limits on that, Stugots. He's testing all the limits on how desperate are you that I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, however I want. And furthermore, what I'm going to do is go from State Farm spokesman and everything that entails, Stugots. You got to be clean to get those things. You lose those things when you're not clean image-wise. To go from that to I do whatever I want, whenever I want, and I'll take your consequences because your consequences aren't going to change my behavior. My life is bigger than football. The things I think are too big to be kept quiet anymore. I don't care whether I'm a distraction to the organization or the huddle or whether I'm missing mandatory camp. I'm leaving now. What are you going to do about it? Okay, disgrace my name. I'm going to be in a different psychedelic land where I don't have to hear what your criticisms are. I'm not going to be in the country. I'm not going to hear the noise. I'll be back in time for football. He's really testing the limits on power and what he can get away with.
But is it going well for him?
I mean, he's going to keep getting his money, and he's going to get bad public opinion, and he's going to get a job as the quarterback of the Jets when he decides to return to it.
And he's also
for now, though.
But he's also going to get considered as a vice presidential candidate. There are good things for leaning into some of the aspects that he's leaning in. Like, his profile has certainly increased because to some he's more infamous, and to others he's speaking truth to power, and he's being brave with some of his stances, however ridiculous you may find them. He has totally changed his perception in the last few years, but when he first started doing this, he had excellent play to go with it. Is he going to become a cautionary tale? Is it going to be known as a red flag when your aging quarterback decides to start turning to ayahuasca? Like, he's at the forefront of a lot of new stuff here. We're not used to seeing people do it at this age. But like we all said, there's only been one that's been able to do it. And that is who Aaron Rodgers will be graded against, independent of all that off-field stuff. Like, when we're talking about the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen,
right,
in terms of playing the position, I don't think it doesn't get much better than the Bradys, the Rodgers, the Mahomeses of the world.
But it feels like once his play is done, he's going to then be compared to the greats of Jesse Ventura. And is that the path that he wants to go down?
He may view it as Reagan.
He knows it all goes away if he shows up on Sundays and plays well. So he doesn't care. To Dan's point,
Yes.
he does not care.
Yeah.
He's out of the country. He doesn't care that Sal Licata is ripping him on WFAN. Go ahead. Have at it. Get your 20 shares. He doesn't care.
You're
Aaron
absolutely
Rodgers.
right. Which comes back to his original point. Like, we don't want anything in this building that affects winning. Like, he may be. I do genuinely think that whatever Aaron Rodgers is doing outside of camp, he believes it is ultimately helping his goal. I don't need that rationale explained to me. I get it. Whether it's wrong or right, that's not for me to decide. But it might not actually be helping.
It might not be, but I will tell you that Tom Brady at Aaron Rodgers' age was pretty obviously unhappy that he was trapped inside the confines of not being able to use his power in New England the way that he wanted to. And so he left to do not psychedelics, but
to win.
But break COVID protocol with Byron Leftwich coming over to his house so he can win. And so he could beat Patrick Mahomes again in the playoffs. So, like, you have very valid concerns, I think, if this is your quarterback. And the more quirky he's gotten, and that's putting kid gloves on it, the quirkier he's gotten publicly, the worse the on-field product has also been.
You do realize, though, right, that he does believe that he aligned with the universe and whatever he is doing will make him the best version of quarterback. He's betting on himself so thoroughly here that he's like, I need this more than I need mandatory camp. I need this enough that I'm willing to have the consequences of my coach and my organization endure the embarrassment of this.
This is his
But
mandatory minicamp.
I think the difference, or one of the differences between him and Tom Brady is I don't think with Tom Brady you ever questioned how much he actually cared about football, which is where you kind of are with Aaron. Like, does Aaron like football? We don't really know.
And the times that he has reportedly flexed his muscle inside that organization is not just with stuff like this. It's, hey, we want to sign Joe Flacco. Actually, I prefer Tim Boyle. We got to hang out. I like Nate Hackett. Like they're making concessions for Aaron Rodgers that are hurting them, because I think there isn't a Jets fan on this planet that wouldn't have preferred Joe Flacco over Tim Boyle.
We signed Randall Cobb.
Billy, I disagree with you that he does not love football. He absolutely loves the way Sundays make him feel. Mandatory camp, Sundays and Mondays and performing well.
In his defense, he went to all the stuff he didn't have to go to. All of it. All the offseason workouts, all that stuff that was voluntary. He went to all of them.
That's exactly what you do when you know you're about to miss one of the things that you can't miss.
Okay, but Mike, Dan asked how desperate you have to be. This desperate.
You're
this desperate.
You're right about this. This is the most spectacular midlife crisis I have ever seen in sports.
It won't end.
But, like, can you be the person that says don't have distractions and be the number one distraction?
I'm not going to claim that he is not inconsistent. What I am going to claim is when you say how important is football to him, not as important as wherever it is that he's headed on this path, obviously. And it's not because football hasn't been important to him. It's because something else is now more important to him. You can't be MVP great at that sport without loving it. It's not possible. You can't do – look, Drew Brees said every time he was in the facility at 10 p.m. and everyone else is gone, greatness is lonely. Like, you can't be that good at it if you don't love it. But he is searching for something else in a way that's publicly obvious. The rest of us think, or many of us think he's lost. But he thinks he's going to win.
Yeah, but aligned with his journey of self-discovery, he's also saying asinine things, whether it's the government-created AIDS or getting into a very public spat with Jimmy Kimmel over, at the very least, jokes in super poor taste about pedophilia. So you have all these things going along with it, and it all kind of sparked by this journey of self-discovery.
We also have no on-field proof that what he's doing is actually important, or if it's working.
Or if it's working is the biggest part about all this. Right. It's just, and again, it's timing out that this might have been the natural. He could have been the most straight-laced dude, quiet, not said a word, literally in that facility day and night, and his play still would have dropped just because of his age.
I also personally don't really care what Aaron Rodgers thinks about anything, like one way or another. I just don't understand why we equate odd behavior to enlightened.
Oh, I'm just telling you his viewpoint on what he's doing with psychedelics and with ayahuasca.
Yeah, but it's just the nature of celebrity today. Like, people are drawn to Russell Brand even more so now as he's really veered into a specific lane because, this person gives off interesting. But really, there's not much there. It's like you think someone's super interesting and you want to find out more of them, and then they believe the earth is flat. It's like, why did I actually put that much stock in this person?
I've been surprised by Russell Brand and how far right he has gone. And it makes me wonder, honestly, because I know we get accused of being in a certain kind of echo chamber ourselves and being affected by that echo chamber. I know people think that I and we are woke fried as an entity. It does make me wonder, though, when you start putting a toe in those waters toward the extreme and then start getting the applause validation of the extreme.
And the money.
No, because, yes.
And the money, because you actually have a career. We're seeing it play out right now with what was presented as a stay-at-home mom going on InfoWars, dropping the N-word, and then publicly thanking black people for their role in I'm not in an echo chamber. I may be here on this show. I live in South Florida. I hear your opinions constantly. I'm on X. I understand everyone else's opinion.
I go to the dentist.
I'm in the golf chat.
Yeah, like, I get it all. I really do. I don't
I don't get Russell Brand going with Alex Jones. I don't get that.
Why? These people are showing you who they are. Like, it's just because I have my own opinions, it's not a byproduct of an echo chamber. There's no shortage of everybody else's opinions. Even in sports, I hear Aaron Rodgers' opinions. I can't avoid them. I understand Billy says he couldn't care less about Aaron Rodgers because he is such a superstar and because I work in sports. I have to care. I have to have some conviction one way or another, or otherwise it's just a pretty boring show if everyone's just like, I don't care.
I can't be in this business and say to you that a quarterback who is 40 missing mandatory camp to possibly do psychedelics or ayahuasca, that's something that I'm numb to. Like, I'm not going to do it. Like,
But it's also never been something that isn't a huge national controversy. Quarterback leaves camp reportedly, potentially because of drugs. Like, that's not something that we've ever dealt with, and it's never been handled this way.
It can't be handled anyway, because when would it present itself?
Dan, you were at the center of it. Ricky Williams.
No, that one was so much different.
A little different, different time, Mike.
Yeah,
so much
weaker
different.
drug.
No, in retrospect,
different position.
In retrospect, like, Ricky was so far ahead of his time. Like, no, it's.
I am citing the perfect example right now of how it's usually been covered and how charmed in existence, and it may be more of a charmed existence because Ricky Williams publicly had to die for this.
Not literally.
You know what I meant.
I'll take 50 though.
Clarify
his identity did have to die, and and Ricky did love football, but Ricky's search was beyond football, and Ricky didn't really fit ever in football. Ricky's the one who told us while in the Ravens locker room with Ed Reed and Ray Lewis, he's like, "I'm a rabbit, they're wolves."
We spoke about this a little bit last week, Darren Waller and his retirement. Did you see like the interview that he did, the podcast that it came out, like, and it ties back slightly to Ricky, where he like referenced astrology as to why it is that he was retiring from football. Like, he said that his chart was saying that he should be doing more than just football, and that was one of the factors in retiring from football. He also had a medical issue that none of us knew about, where he says he almost died, and I think it was right after he filmed that music video that we were kind of making fun of. But this seems to be happening, and it's more prevalent.
You can't do any of this stuff without a whole lot of people mocking you, especially in an avenue like this where football is so important that we can't understand anything else being more important than football. And especially in America where work is so important.
You're right.
No. You're being paid $50 million a year. That should be the most important thing to most people.
That's fine, but don't be the guy that says football is the most important thing.
Precisely.
But why?
He's the one telling us that.
Why can't you do that if all you're going to incur is a fine, and then you can come back and have your job? The
you can do,
consequences
but why
don't matter.
say football needs to be the most important thing, and then very publicly have football not be the most important thing?
Billy, you can catch anyone on these inconsistencies. You're right. You are absolutely correct. Gotcha, Aaron Rodgers. That seems inconsistent. And also, he'll take the consequences of you thinking that because he doesn't care.
I'm not trying to get him.
Oh, Dan, he cares.
There are no consequences.
Cares.
Mike,
he cares more than anybody else.
It was $16,000. He could have started. He doesn't care.
He cares. He opens up every Pat McAfee segment talking about how he doesn't care when he cares. He cares. Mike, he cares about the reaction to this segment. He cares. It's icy around him in Tahoe because he cares.
Mike, he's enduring and choosing the consequences of whatever comes with laughingstock, public criticism. He's choosing it. You think he doesn't know that if he misses mandatory camp, it's a thing?
But he's not, though, because then he's also playing the victim and acting as though he's a target, as though his decisions are not, like, the consequences aren't the results of his decisions.
And he cannot wait for you to tune in to the next public statement to find out exactly why he was unexcused.
I agree with Billy on the idea that that Aaron Rodgers, like LeBron James, really is addicted to the attention, that there is something about making loud noises that does provide something, even if it's polarization and even if it's loud noises.
So he cares about Sal Licata?
With negativity.
He very much spends a lot of time. It's obvious how much time he spends on the internet. He tells you how much time he spends on the internet by saying how much he reads up on things, and he encourages people to go read the internet on these things. So he very much cares.
All right,
He's aware of it.
So let me put in front of you, okay, if he cares then about the consequences, then why is he doing this?
Because I genuinely think that he thinks that this makes it better. And his rationale is we are keeping stuff out of that facility that doesn't help us win. He is an egomaniac in that way, as a lot of people are, as you and I are. Like, I think he believes that what he is doing, he is rationalized in his mind that this serves a greater good. And a lot of people have made bad decisions rationalizing things they feel serve the greater good.
He also is just creating adversity for himself to overcome. Like, none of this is actual adversity, but then he will now paint it as adversity that he and himself is overcoming, and he's using as a driving force. Like, he's doing this to himself.
The whole thing about him coming back last year from an injury that everybody in medicine was telling us there is no actual way he can come back. He made that a weekly conversation because he wanted to prove his detractors wrong. He wanted to crack open the door to maybe the science isn't all that smart.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please. Or I'm sorry, Juju, put it on the poll. Guillermo doesn't do that anymore. At Le Batard Show, are Dan and Mike egomaniacs?
Duh.
Everybody's got an ego, really.
Come on.
Even the people that present themselves as egoless. There are people that are more egoless, but everyone has a sense of self-worth. And some people who have lived lives and have been high achievers in the public space are naturally going to have a larger ego than others. And if he thinks that he's taking something to maybe take that ego apart as you presented it, and I know you don't speak for ayahuasca, I would love to start seeing.
I speak for big ayahuasca.
Yeah. Well, you presented it as a way that it's very clearly not working for Aaron Rodgers.
On the poll is one of the options.
I am bought and paid for by big ayahuasca, clearly. I'm the only one in the mainstream media advocating for, hey, guys, this isn't just tripping balls.
By the way, can we stop searching for stuff? A better self, the meaning of life.
If
what
Phil
happens
Jackson
when I
started,
die?
remember,
Just search for a Super Bowl.
Remember how Phil Jackson was covered? Phil Jackson wasn't showing up to meetings because he was out in the mountains, and it was reported that there was this ayahuasca thing around him. Like, it's a natural thing.
No,
Didn't someone
Stop searching.
Didn't someone accuse Rick Carlisle at one point of using peyote? Put it on the poll.
That would
please,
explain some of those
Juju.
fourth quarters.
At Le Batard Show. Hey, Aaron Rodgers, how about searching for a Super Bowl?
Please.
How's that sound? Just make it one word.
I have an updated offer for my wife's ticket. It was $1,900, then it was $1,902 and a gummy.
Yeah.
And the guy originally who went at $1,900 has rebutted with $1,905 and 10 free custom hats.
Wow.
All right.
Cincinnati Lou. He
We're
does the
not
hat
going to
thing.
get up there fast enough.
Cincinnati Lou.
We need to get to $3,000. We're not going to get there in
Still
hats.
tomorrow. So.